Greetings everyone, and I am here today with Mr. Negan because I want to learn how to fight against him and what to do. I was on the fence about actually taking a look at him because, you know, he's a guest character. There's very little chance that he's going to return in, you know, further Tekkens down the line. But Namco could always recycle assets. We've seen this with Soul Calibur. In Soul Calibur for the PSP version called, I believe, Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, Kratos from God of War was a guest character, and while he never returned for any Soul Calibur after that up until this date, his move list was almost completely absorbed by Lizard Man in Soul Calibur 4. I believe his name was Aegon or something like that. But whatever, they can always recycle assets, and for the time being, we are stuck with Mr. Negan here. Hopefully for a long time, because, I don't know, I'm kind of like not super optimistic that Namco are going to get Tekken 8 right. Tekken 7 has a lot of problems, but like it's in a much better state than prior Tekkens were. So, Mr. Negan here. I'm going to do a very similar formula in this one. I'm going to take like an overall look at him, kind of like provide the summary, and then dive into the details down the line, further down the video. First of all, I'm going to start with his lows. The reason I start with lows is that they kind of like provide me a good enough insight into the character, I believe. Like, if you see a character with fantastic lows, you know, plus on hit, safe on block relatively, like, you know, not super launch punishable by a huge portion of the cast, provide good crushing, whatever, they kind of like point you in the direction that this character is going to be more of a mix-up, kind of like oriented, you know, character on the battlefield itself. So you're going to have to like deal with mix-ups way more. But if the character has crappy lows, then that kind of like takes a burden off your shoulders, and you can kind of like focus on other stuff like not getting counter hit, playing the frame game, and whatnot. When it comes to Mr. Negan here, he definitely falls into the good lows category because, first of all, he has a generic 12 frame low. Of course, it does no damage. It's -2 on hit, but like overall, it's a good low, and he has fantastic other lows. Most of which, again, super positive on hit, relatively very safe on block. Most of which are going to be at -12. And normally, against such a character, if you're playing Armor King like me, I would advise you to go for low parries because Armor King doesn't get anything but a while standing 4. I don't know if you've seen my while standing 2 video, where I talk about that, but sadly with Negan you can't do that because he has moves like these. This is a low done with his bat, meaning that I can't low parry it. You have to low block it. And he has other moves very similar to this, in the form of full crouch down forward 2, and from intimidation stance down 2. So I would advise you to go for low parries had he not had such lows like these. So you sadly have to low block and take your while standing 4 when you actually duck a low. Now, despite the fact that his lows are on the good side in the Tekken 7 system, they don't provide as much crushing. With the exception of the generic down 4 and his down back 3, which is kind of like a generic down 3, I would say, these are like not particularly rewarding for him. And the lows that he would rather go for, such as this and that, they don't really provide him any crushing. So he's not going to be tech crouching under your highs as much, and he doesn't have a hop kick. So this means that this is a character that is not going to be evading with his body all that much. I believe his sidestep is okay, I'm not sure, I didn't check. But like regardless of that, they kind of like designed this guy around relying on this, which is his power crush. Now, this is a normal hit launching power crush. This is not something we're used to. This is definitely unique. And instead of like doing regular crushing, he's going to try to blow through your offense or your attempts at retaliation and pressure with this. Now, as most of you, I believe, know, this is launch punishable because it is -15 on block, which means that it's going to be launch punishable by the vast majority of the cast. Additionally, like I said, he doesn't crush as much, he's going to be relying on that, and on top of that, he doesn't have a counter hit game. Because this is his standing 4, and on counter hit, it doesn't launch. He has strings from it, the strings do not launch. His forward 4 somehow has like just 1 frame slower than his regular standing 4, and it still does not launch. Standing 3, also 13 frames, doesn't launch. And when I checked his, unless I'm missing something, when I checked his move list on RB Norway's site to kind of like double check this fact, I didn't find any kind of like counter hit launchers that are quick anyway, or like at least to put here, which means that he is totally like at your mercy when it comes to counter hits. You can pressure him and try to fish for counter hits, and that's why you see a lot of Negan players do something, crouch, and then go for this launcher. Now, if I record it here, sorry, not like that. Whether he goes into Intimidation stance or not, this is launch punishable because it is at least -16, okay? So, bottom line is, this character is very susceptible to counter hits. He does not crush at all, and if you bait his attempts at retaliating or at countering your counter hits, you're going to launch him, which is going to make it like particularly dangerous for him. The closest thing he has to a counter hit is going to be this tool here. This is a shove. It is kind of like very similar in principle to King and Armor King shove. Of course, Armor King shove like just sucks, you know. But his is the following. It is normally -7 on block. On hit it is only +2. And on counter hit, he enters into Intimidation stance at +14, where only the first attack out of Intimidation stance is guaranteed, which is this one, because it is 14 frames. So he gets that on you if he lands the shove as a counter hit, which is a 14 frame mid, if I forgot to mention it, 14 frame mid. And he gets this, which is just 35 plus a knockdown. So not the scariest thing in the world. So what does this character have, actually? Well, besides the power crush, what he has is a vast array of strings. Strings that are very confusing and kind of like hard to deal with. Sometimes they end in a like a mid that's going to be either safe or kind of like awkward to punish, depending on how he does it. And dealing with those strings with sidestepping is going to be like a headache, because for one string the correct side to sidestep is right, for the second it's left. Sometimes you have to duck the second hit because it's a high. You know, typical sleazy string offense. And that is why this character is kind of like tough to fight against, because he's going to be relying on those a lot. I'm going to try my best to kind of like break them down in the further section, in the specifics. But for now, this is like what the character is all about. He's all about mix-ups, either from neutral by kind of like constantly going for his lows, either from strings with stuff like this, for example, stuff like that, or from stance. Intimidation stance is now kind of like a good mix-up stance, and it's kind of like dangerous to adopt or like commit to ducking or sidestepping or backdashing against it, or even blocking. And finally, I would say he has range issues, mostly. He doesn't have a lot of attacks that reach far. He doesn't have the easiest time keeping you out unless he like willy-nilly goes for this power crush here. So you can realistically keep him out. And the one thing that stands out to me is this move here. Now, before I talk about this move, generally up close he doesn't have any attack or any good attack that tracks against sidestep left. In neutral, that is. So if you're in a blow-for-blow situation against him, kind of like trading jabs, constantly putting each other at like +1, -1, stepping left is a safe option. He has good homing moves, which I'm going to talk about, but no mids, at least that I found, that track to this side that are kind of like quick in the 14 frame department. So nothing that tracks against sidestep left up close. So if you're in a blow-to-blow situation against him, up close, sidestep left when in doubt. I'd say like stepping against this character gets you further than others, especially if you utilize sidestep duck. That's going to be golden for you. And from range, the kind of like the preferred direction to step is right, because he has this attack here. This forward 1+2. As you can see, it has a lot of range, and it is a normal hit launcher. Okay, and it is safe, as you can see, at -6. Now the thing about this is, I found that sidestepping right against it gets you clip less than sidestep left. See what happens right there? Like, it should be relatively linear, but it caught me out of sidewalking left way more than it did against sidewalking right. So up close, step left. Out of strings, it's very dependent, but generally if something ends in plus on block, it's likely going to be sidesteppable towards the left. Other than that, sidestep right from range and from most kind of like safe-ish options out of strings. So I believe that is it for the summary portion. Short version is go for counter hits, bait his power crush, bait his attempts at crushing your counter hit highs if you have them, sidestep left up close, be wary of his mix-ups and you have to memorize his punishment. From range, try to keep him out, and sidestep right. Be aware of his lows, low block, don't go for low parries because he has attacks that cannot be low parried. So with that, let's start with the specifics. So, beginning to kind of like highlight some of his moves. 422 is a string that ends in this animation, which is 50 damage and kind of like, well, pretty damaging. It is not a natural combo. You can eat the first hit and block the second. The first hit is a 14 frame high. Now, on counter hit, of course, this is all guaranteed. And you eat 52 damage. Now, the reason I didn't include this among his counter hit is because I don't believe he can counter hit confirm this. He has to dial it in unless I'm mistaken. And as you can see, if you block the second hit, he's punishable at -12. The first hit is safe at -6. But again, it's a high. This move right here, this kind of like begins to highlight the issue I have with kind of like his animations, where they didn't bother like doing two distinct animations for two moves. They took this, which is normally a -9 safe mid. Normal hit, it only gives him plus frames, and on counter hit, it gives him this holy smokes kind of like attack throw animation. But if we transition to his back two strings, which is his best homing move, I believe, because the first hit is a 16 frame high. Well, if it's not the best, if it's definitely up there. And this second hit, as you can see, it actually doesn't leave you crouching. It is -11, so it's punishable. And on normal hit, it gives him the same attack throw animation. So, like, I don't believe this is a natural combo, but I'm sure it is a counter hit combo. So here's my issue. Like, if you're this is what gave me headaches like while examining his move list. Like, I'm used to this being safe, and then he does the same thing, and I'm like, wait, didn't I see this here? It was safe, whatever. So this kind of like complicates this situation with his block punishment. Speaking of which, back 2 has another extension, which is also a mid, but it's safe. And I don't believe you can step this in either direction. I'm trying to step it, it's not working, and it's a knee. So this kind of like gives him less of a reason to go for this anyway, unless he kind of like is certain that it's going to connect. Final thing I want to highlight here before I switch up moves is forward 4-2. This is also safe. It also has a little bit of range on it, and on hit it's just a knockdown. On counter hit, it's still a knockdown and it doesn't launch. So it doesn't like take the spotlight away from forward 1+2, but something I have coming up might. The moves I have coming up are all plus on block. So these are moves where you have to be careful and not seek counter hits or kind of like pressure him, as I advised you to do earlier, and kind of like the overall strategy. First of which is back 1+2. The reason I recorded a jab here is I wanted to show you something. But first of all, it is +4 on block. On normal hit, it knocks down. And on counter hit, it launches. Okay? Now, while this is steppable in both directions, I would advise you to make a habit out of sidestep left against a Negan that is abusing this, not only because I told you already that a lot of the neutral tools he has will whiff against sidestep left, but he has this almost the same attack from this string, where he does like a different voice cue. This is a normal hit launcher this time. Again, like I said, confusion, confusion, confusion. And, of course, you can interrupt here. You can interrupt, I am sure, yes. And against sidestep right here, it will fail. So you have to sidestep left, and please be careful. Please let the sidestep conclude fully before you do anything. See right there? You have to confirm the whiff and then launch, which I didn't do there, but you get the point. This is another plus on block from string. I believe this is down forward 4-3, and if he holds the 2, he transitions over to Intimidation stance. If I could find it here in order to avoid recording it. This. And he's even more plus, I believe. Yes, plus 5. Still, nothing is guaranteed here, but if he is plus 5, that means that the quickest attack he has out of Intimidation is 14 frames. So if he does this, which again starts with a 14 frame mid, he puts you in a situation where your jab is going to lose to his 1-2 out of Intimidation stance. So of course the solution to this is to either duck the second hit, and the second solution is sidestep right. See, it's starting to get a little bit more complicated. And of course that string has other extensions in the form of this. And again, this is a knee that is totally safe, and you can't step or do anything about it, to the best of my knowledge. I don't think you... Yes, you can't even backsway this. So down forward 4 is one of his good pokes. Good for us, it's sidesteppable to the left, so there's still kind of like a strategy overall against the character. This is his running 2, plus 9, on normal hit. It knocks down, so it doesn't really kind of like allow him to continue pressure. But the real star of the show is this move right here. Forward, forward, 4 is plus on block. And, of course, that means that it's not only safe, it's plus on block. It doesn't like push you away all that far. And it is a wall bounce. So again, from range, make a habit out of stepping, because you're going to be able to avoid this move. Pay close attention to these, especially the down forward 4 2, which I kind of like excluded from the recordings here, because I believe this is his best entry into Intimidation stance. Now on to moves that the Negan really shouldn't use, and the only reason he would use them is to either abuse the fact that you don't know the matchup, or he's kind of like trolling you for not knowing the frame data. Sometimes one of these might come out because, while I will highlight the Punishers later on, this thing for here, for example, this is his 13 frame Punisher. It starts with a high and quickly transitions to a mid, and it gives him 38 damage plus a knockdown. Okay? And once you block this, this is minus 14, and this is going to be a theme. A lot of his stuff is minus 14 on block if it's done from neutral and it's unsafe. This is also kind of like a little bit abused, because it looks like it's plus on block. You see, this is like the third time that we see this overhead swing from the bat. 2 times it was plus on block, once from neutral, once from string, and this is actually minus 14, and it forces crush. So Armor King can only get while standing 4 here. King and other characters can get their 14 frame while standing Punishers. So this is kind of like a problem for me. I really don't like this. Like, if you want these moves to have different properties, just give them different animations. But instead they kind of like used one single animation to create 3 different moves, which I really don't like, with variable frame data and properties on all attacks. This is a not particularly good evasive move for him. As you can see, even this kind of like lacks range, and on block, minus 20, so it's super punishable. It's kind of like realistic to maybe practice in trying to get a dock upper against this. If you're playing Armor King, King only gets forward 2-1, or like whatever, do whatever you want to do against that move, but it is minus 20. This is a string that he also should never use. I believe this is only kind of like used in combos as an ender, maybe. And if you do happen to block it when he doesn't deserve it, keep in mind that it is, as you can see, minus 20, so it's super punishable. And this knife here, also he's not supposed to go for it. At 14 frames, I don't believe this kind of like launches. I don't believe he recovers in time to get like a full combo on you. I could be wrong, but I don't care. What I really care about is it's minus, again, a billion on block, and it's launch punishable. On top of that, of course, I highlighted like that Punisher, down 4-2, also from him, whether he transitions over to Intimidation stance or not. Either way, he's going to be punishable. As I'm going to show here, this is also minus 14. If he transitions to Intimidation stance, I believe you can get a launch without him being able to interrupt you, I think, but I could be wrong, I don't care. It's still punishable either way. And all of his punishers from while standing are punishable, all of them. But what I'm mostly concerned with is, of course, like I said, this, not like that, where is it? Like this, and this I talked about earlier, because this is what a lot of Negan players are going to do to substitute for the fact that he doesn't crush highs all that much. And just keep in mind that once you block it, he is launch punishable at minus 15. His other while standing punishers, since I kind of like brought it up, he has similar options from his down forward one, I believe, and this is minus 11, just like that. This is also while standing 3-2, and this is very similar to that string that I showed you earlier, and it is minus a billion. You can launch it. And this is the sneaky low that I told you about that cannot be low parried. Now we're gonna have to start talking about his strings. A warning in advance, like I told you, his strings are confusing. There is no kind of like universal answers, as usual, like with characters that are super reliant on strings, that you're not going to find like one single thing that blows the entire character up. You're going to have to memorize like the correct block punishment, when to duck. I kind of like talked about this in my Armor King while standing 2 video, and the prime example of which is going to be these 5 extensions that he has off of his 1 jab. So these are all off of a 10 frame jab. The best string, unquestionably in my mind, is this 1-1-2. Now the thing about this, the final hit there is safe, minus 9. The final hit there on normal hit is only plus frames, but on counter hit it knocks down. You can't step the final hit. I'm trying to step it. I tried setting the CPU to do it. You cannot step this. The only solution is, like I said, to duck the second hit. Gladly it doesn't jail. But first of all, again, I talked about this in my Armor King while standing 2 video, but getting a while standing, like getting a normal launcher here, it can be done, but only in practice mode. Realistically, you're not going to, I don't think you're going to be able to do this in matches, and this is where stuff like Armor King's while standing 2, like this, comes into play, where you can get great combos, great wall carry, and kind of like send a message to the Negan player that you know the matchup, if you're able to do it. If they're abusing this, duck and punish with while standing 2, because this is the only option here. And actually ducking against the string is like, I don't know, because he has 1-2. This jails. You cannot duck here. If you try ducking here, you'll get nothing, which is good so far. And he can transition into Intimidation stance here on block or hit, but of course on block he's going to be, he's not going to get anything out of it. I'm not sure if you can punish him there. I'm going to take a look at this like individually when I cover his Intimidation stance, and don't worry, I'm going to round up the entries into Intimidation stance on their own. Moving on with the extensions, 1-2-2. This I talked about a little bit earlier, and like I said, first of all, you can interrupt here, and you have to sidestep left, but it has to be clean. If you do anything but sidestep clean, you're going to be clipped and you're going to get launched. So maybe go for the interruption, maybe it's going to be better for you. And again, it's going to cover the option as to whether like he stops at the second hit. In order to dissuade you, maybe kind of like from retaliating, he's going to do this, and he's going to score a counter hit and a knockdown. Not super intimidating, and this, I believe, cannot be stepped in either direction. Oh, I stand corrected, but I believe... Yeah, it's kind of like it's difficult to step. The timing is a little bit specific. And as you can see, where one thing is steppable to the left, the other is steppable to the right. And finally, the final option here is this. And whenever you see this kind of like bat hilt, kind of like strike, it's going to be side-steppable towards the right. Now, I believe I saw a JDCR video where he was talking about labbing sidestep, specifically when Negan was released. And he was kind of like talking about the same thing, that there is no kind of like clear way to step against this character. But he kind of like reached the conclusion that when he's trying to be safe, like these two options is him trying to stay safe. And they're going to be side-steppable towards the right. But when he's trying to pressure, or when he's trying to go for something like huge, for example, like this thing here, he's going to be side-steppable towards the left. This doesn't kind of like carry over to the entire move list. And I still fear that like this won't like solve issues for you all that much if you're trying to fight Negan, unless like of course you're on JDCR's level, which I doubt most of us are. Moving on to other kind of like far less good strings. These are strings that they should not be throwing out. Still, they're in the move list, maybe they're kind of like used for combos or whatever, but these first two strings are not. This is a clearly, I would say, telegraphed string. It has no other variations. This is 2-1-4. The final low, as you can see there, is -12, so most characters are going to get like either a while standing 4 or something slightly better. But this is a situation where it's kind of like realistic to go for a low parry, because I think the string is clearly like telegraphed and he has no other options there. Of course, you can always stop at the second hit, but whatever. This string is kind of like loved by Negan players because, again, the final hit looks like it's plus on block. This is kind of like one of those other situations where like overhead swings. But thing is, first of all, bummy answer, if you're in a situation where the Negan player has low health anyway, there is a 10-frame gap where you can trade. Like, if you trade with a 2-punch, as you can see, the damage differential is not huge in Negan's favor, and it provides you an okay answer to the string if the match has progressed to a point where the health benefit is in your favor. Now, if he stops at the third hit, as you see there, he's -14, and the full thing is -14 anyway, but you're forced into crouch. This is, again, one of these situations where King would be better here because he gets while standing 2-2. Thing is, maybe other characters can step this, especially at the third hit, but Armor King can't. And when it comes to the final hit, I had partial success stepping it, but I still wouldn't advise it. Once you know it's coming, just take your while standing 4. But the thing is, you can sway punch in between the second and third hit. So, just to like to re-abbreviate, you can 2-jab interrupt between the hits, and the damage differential is still going to be in Negan's favor, but not huge. So you can use that if you're just like not in the mood to do anything else. If he stops at the third, he's -14 and you're left standing. If he does the full thing, he's -14 and you're left in crouch, so you only get while standing 4, but you can still sway punch in between the second and third hits. Down 4-3 has two types of extensions, both of which suck. This is the third time we've seen something like this. The bat kind of like downwards hit, and it's again -11. It looks like it leaves you in crouch, but it doesn't. You can get your punish, and the second hit is even worse because it ends in a -14 kind of like boot strike. I think you can step this, but either way, either duck the second hit of these, of course, if you can like detect that he did the down 4-3 anyway, or just take your punish on the full string. Moving on, some of these strings I already highlighted in previous sections. This is his best transition into Intimidation stance. Again, I'm going to talk about that. This is down forward for 2. When he holds the 2, he goes into Intimidation stance at +5. Again, here, if you interrupt with a jab, he might get a guaranteed Intimidation stance 1-4 on you, so be patient. The second option here is this. And because, like I told you, for this you can duck the second hit to avoid being negative, or you can sidestep right. If I could pull it off, you can sidestep right, just to show here. See, it clips sidestep left. So again, this is another situation where he's trying to pressure, but he shouldn't sidestep left. And this knee is going to catch you, because if you duck, it catches you on counter hit, it knocks down, and you can't sidestep it to the right. Now, sidestepping this to the left is iffy. It can be done, but a lot of the times, as you can see, like you step it once and then you try again, and for some reason you just lost your ability to step this, and I don't believe you can sway punch this either to kind of like get out of the situation. So this is actually a very good thing for him. This down forward 4-3, the second knee is fantastic for the character. If like I'm going to talk about like this, like countering the character up close later on. I'm not going to waste time here. Further strings, he has this back 1-2, and this is a situation where he's -10, and I believe this is practically homing. I'm not sure if it lists it as so. No, it doesn't. This is supposed to be a spin move for him, but these two are. The first hit of this is a homing attack. As you can see, it's 16 frames and it's a high. Remember, I talked about this before, about this, you know, 50 damage throw animation, and it is -11 for him, and it looks like it leaves you in crouch, but it doesn't. And the second option here is the safe one. It's also mid, but I don't believe you can do anything about this. Again, stepping doesn't work, and I don't believe you can interrupt him here. So this and this are very good strings for Negan. So, when it comes to his Intimidation stance, first I'm going to discuss the options that put him in the stance. Of course, he can access it manually, and it's a stance he can block in, from which the quickest attack is a 14 frame high, as I showed, and he has power crushes, and he has auto low parry within the stance. First of all, how can he enter it? He has 1-2, which we talked about, this string that jails. Now, if he does this, he's going to do it as a Punisher, and he's going to be at +3 and an Intimidation. Which means that, like I told you, if he goes for his quote-unquote quickest, or like if he thinks that it's guaranteed or something, his 1-2, you can actually interrupt here with jabs, but then he can power crush you. If you down jab, he can stay and not do anything and auto low parry that. We're going to talk about how there is an option select that Armor King has against the mix here, but it's difficult. It's hard to do. Second is down forward 1-2, and the second hit here ends in a mid. We talked about this. This is -11, and he has something identical off of his while standing 1-2, which is this one, quick tenderizer to Intimidation. And it's the same thing. This is -11 and it's punishable, and it's not one of his good entries into the stance, of course, unless it's on hit, because on hit it is going to be +7. So he's completely uninterruptible here. Further options, this is the one we talked about. This is his best entry on block into the stance, down forward 4-2. Second hit is punishable, duckable, sorry, but always remember you have a problem with, you know, the second hit, which is the 3. And of course, be careful, if you do manage to duck this, you have to be quick with your launch in order for it to count as a punish, because he might like recognize that and go for his power crush and kind of like make your day bad. This again we talked about. This puts him in stance of +7, and you cannot low parry this low, and on block it is -14, so all you get as Armor King is while standing 14. If you're playing another character, go for your 14 frame punish. Hopefully it includes a launch. And finally we have this. This is an unblockable. Normally this is a homing attack, which is safe, I believe. And if he charges it up into an unblockable, of course you can duck this and launch punish him. So just a quick roundup before I dive into like the options out of the stance in more detail. Let's just start off with 1-2 on hit. Forget on block. On block you're going to be able to like wreak havoc on him, but let's just keep like the option that maybe he does this as a punisher and he's going to press his advantage afterwards. So first of all, at +3 you can interrupt his quickest option out of the stance with your 10th frame, like that. But if he opts to go for the power crush, see, he's going to launch you. So naturally, the option, the thing here, because this power crush here is a high, okay, you can get the idea of, okay, I'm going to get a dick jab, kind of like guaranteed interrupt. Problem is, first of all, he can block in stance, and second, sorry, like I said, he has auto low parry within the stance, which is going to auto launch your dick jab. So there is actually a universal answer here, but it's difficult to do, which is going to be the following. I hope I can pull it off once, which is this. If you giant swing him here, remember he cannot break it if he goes into the power crush. And if he already did his 1-2, his hand would be on the 2, hopefully, or that's where it should be, and he won't be able to break it. Even if he breaks it, you kind of like get out of that situation for free. Going for an instant shining wizard is like science. This is already science fiction enough. Like, this is just like a novelty that there is kind of like a universal answer, almost. But again, this is not super realistic. But these are the options when he's just +3. And already we can barely like get a theoretical answer against the stance. But this means that when he's way more plus, like this for example, here he is at +5, which means that he's going to interrupt you with his 14 frame no matter what. And if he hits you with this, he's flat out +7. So these are the two best kind of like entries into the stance. Down forward 4-2, which I've said multiple times already, and down back 2. Off of these, you have no option other than block and deal with the stance the old-fashioned way, trying to duck under the highs, duck under that unbreakable throw, and I'm going to highlight the options now. And you know, like deal with the because you're in a mix-up. You can't step. He has homing launchers. You can't duck. He has everything, which I'm going to like explain a little bit now. So. The options out of Intimidation. Again, reminder, quickest attack is this 14 frame high. Sorry, I keep saying it's a high, it's a mid, sorry, I'm very sorry. This is, if you block the full thing, it is -13, okay? Because it's mid-mid. So this is his quickest option, so you can utilize that against him. Again, the main mix-up here is, of course, this. This is a power crush. It is a high, it is homing, it launches a normal hit, and again, it is safe at -9. So far, kind of like, maybe you'd be kind of like tempted to duck, and there is like more of a reason, because this is an unbreakable throw. You can kind of like react to this, because it's slow. He has this new low ever since Season 3, I believe, and this is -13. And for that, he's going to need a safe mid, because so far he doesn't have a safe mid, and he has a lot of those. This 2 is safe, so is this 3, so is this 2. These kind of like leave him in Intimidation. And finally, he has this, which is kind of like the unblockable, sidestep once you see that, maybe interrupt him. And finally he has this, which I really don't know why he would go for, unless he has a super hard read on you that you're going to duck, because this is again -20. This is one of those super launch punishable, even though again as Armor King you have to be good at dark uppers in order to launch him from here, but even if you're not, back 3 into shoulder, or even simpler, 4-1. Finally, I'm going to like recap a little bit of the tracking that I talked about earlier. This character is very reliant on homing moves and some of his lows for tracking, because none of his mids, at least the ones that I took a look at, the mids that are kind of like quick and applicable in a real match, none of them track against sidestep left. First of which, of course, is his down forward one. See, it whiffs. Now, I did the first hit of the extension to make a point. Because, of course, it is realistic for him to go for the second hit at least, because, like I said, it is a high and it's safe. This is why, generally, you're going to find that sidestep left into duck, come on, is going to evade a lot of his options. This is his shove. Again, this is, I believe, one of the good tools he has in neutral, and you can step it towards the left. Down forward 4-2, which is the best entry into the stance because it's off of a 14 frame mid. Again, you can duck the second hit there. And finally, even should he go for this, this is not a particularly good string with this extension, as both mids at the end are punishable, at least the second high here is safe. Again, you can duck. And because something like this tracks to both directions, it is again advisable to sidestep duck in order to get your punish on it. So, this is why he's going to rely on his homing moves, most of which are going to be highs. I believe the best of which is his back two. If I could find it here. These, which I talked about already. The first hit of which is as you can see, a 16 frame high. So again, if you make a habit out of sidestep left duck, like, I'm not saying it's going to like completely blow up the character, but it's going to provide a good enough kind of like option, at least against some of like the cheese-seeking Negans that you're fighting online. Finally, to talk about his rage options, I don't believe they're kind of like fantastic or anything. Rage art, I believe, is generic. It is 20 frames of startup and minus 22 on block, so you can realistically punish it with either a launcher or your rage art or the rage art of your own. When it comes to rage drives, he accesses it by, this is like the standard version, only +8 and leaves you close. If you eat this, you get knocked down into, I believe, a bound state where he gets a combo on you. Doesn't matter because he has other kind of like, this option kind of like puts you far away. If you eat this, you're going to get knocked further away, but he's going to be less plus on block. And finally, this version fully launches. Class 1 launcher, I believe, and its side switches. And when you block it, it's going to be -8 for him. Finally, in case I forgot to mention it, he has only one throw, which is a 1+2 break, which is this, from neutral, aside from that unbreakable throw he has from stance. So that was Negan. Overall, I'd say the most important thing is the general strategy, like I said, regarding like sidestep left up close, you know, his inability to crush on most of his stuff. It will mostly become like a baiting match against him. You're gonna have to deal with his strings. You're going to have to memorize what's punishable and what's not. It's really difficult. Punishment training here doesn't help because it doesn't contain that many strings at all. And you're going to have to like run over them multiple times, maybe utilize the sound cues. I really don't like the way they reused a lot of the animations in many of his like moves, once on its own, once within a string, once from a punisher, whatever, like with different frame data on each and everything. It's really not good, not cool, you know. But overall, I say he has like, you have a lot of options against him no matter who you play. I don't think he's a particularly super challenging matchup for a lot of characters. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. Again, I thank you all for watching. Take care and goodbye.